All right, I am not sure if the sound was on for that because I could not hear it. So, did you guys hear that? I know the complaint is generally that intro is too loud, but I didn't hear it at all this time. Shadowfax says time for 2002 sneaker commercial intro. Love it. Yes, we're going retro with this, guys. Thank you, Jeff. How are we doing? Excuse me. How are we doing, guys? Getting close to the holiday season. The top 10 continues to march on strong. And we're also getting into transfer season. There's a lot of potential transfers on the table here. Tony says, "What up, Pete? Who do you think gets a move December?" I think you mean January. Yeah, I think there are guys who will get a move. I'm going to do a whole separate video about this, but particularly just, MLS guys that should get a move. There are three. That would be Jack McGlynn, Diego Luna, and John Token. They're the ones that I think will be the most likely to move in December. And frankly, the ones that it's time to move, particularly McGlynn and Token have sort of hit their ceilings in MLS, and they're not really going to get much better unless they are pushed. And so for both of them, I think it's time for them to go. I think Luna should go as well. I still don't think that the people at RSL really know how to use him. And I think, there are better environments where I think he can develop. Ya says, is Chris Brady cooked? No, he's not cooked. I just think he could use another year over at Chicago. Now, for better or for worse, he's going to be playing under Greg Berhalter, which means we know one thing. He will get lots of reps playing with his feet. So that'll be interesting to see how he does, and maybe another year playing with his feet and then a move, right? But who knows what the Chicago Fire under Greg Berhalter are going to look like. It could be a disaster, but if it's a disaster, he's still going to get lots of shot stopping, practice. Chuck says, Luna to Leeds been surging lately. I'm just going to give my thoughts on this real quick. I don't think Leeds is the right place for Diego Luna. I don't think he fits the style of play at all. I think that it is a jump for him, particularly because there is a chance that they're going to get promoted this year to the Premier League. And MLS to the Premier League is just not ever a doable jump, right? Like there is not a single player in MLS right now, except for maybe Messi, sure. But even then, I don't think Messi would necessarily do that well in the Premier League at this point in his career. In fact, I don't think he would. Hard to say. I don't think he would suit the Premier League at all. Certainly not right now. Messi is not who he used to be, right? So if Leeds get promoted, so if let's say Luna goes in January and then Leeds gets promoted. First of all, I don't think the championship suits Luna either. He's a more technical player than a runner, right? And there's the hyper intensity of the English game. I just don't think would suit him. I think the Eredivisie or the Belgian league would be a good middle ground jump. And I tweeted about this today. It's important for our guys. I think the Eredivisie and even Belgium to a degree, which is even easier than, the Eredivisie, are a good testing ground. If you can't hack it in the Eredivisie or the Belgian league, you might as well go back to MLS, a la, Georgi Mihailovic or Cole Bassett, right? Couldn't even hack it there. What are you doing in Europe, right? Like at that point, there's no point in going to play in the Scottish league or the Croatian league or what. Just come back to MLS, right? And so I think it's a good test. And if you do well there, it doesn't mean you can play in a top 5 league, but you have a higher chance of doing it. And particularly, they are good at development. They're good at developing players. We're seeing the impact that playing a year in the Eredivisie has had on a Paxton Aronson, for example, right? Or even, obviously Malik Tillman and what he's doing, Ricardo Pepi, Serginho Dest before his ACL. We saw the jump in ability because it is a slightly easier league, and particularly if you play for one of the better teams, you spend a lot of time on the ball, and that does certainly enhance your credentials on the ball, right? Because you just get reps. You get reps on the ball. You get reps breaking down bunkers. It isn't the highest quality for sure, but it is a step above MLS, and so it's a good sort of, proving ground, right? Or interim step, so to speak. So I don't think he should go to Leeds, and I hope he does not, because I don't think it would really suit him. And I am worried that especially if they get promoted, he ain't going to play in the Premier League. Like Brendan Aronson ain't even going to play in the Premier League that much if they get promoted. And that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I think we'll see what happens. I think, Luna is Eredivisie should be the key, perhaps, to replace Malik Tillman over at PSV Eindhoven, or even for now, replace Chucky Lozano, who's coming back to retire in MLS. But let us have a quick word from our sponsor, in which is really just me saying, where the game starts, you know the code, BELIEVE. That looked like I was doing a commercial for Shakeology. That is not a sponsor of the channel. Although, if you want to be, hit me up. But yes, Bet Online, I still use it. Who's ready to dive into the top 10? Luuk de Jong is finally back from injury. Played only 27 minutes in their, Copa del Rey game against Salamanca, and assisted the 7th goal. This was a lower division team, Salamanca. So, barely crept into the top 10. Let's be honest. It was also a bit of a slower week. No MLS players. A lot of our guys injured. Who's injured right now? Balogun is injured. Kevin Paredes is injured. Serginho Dest, obviously injured. Sargent, injured. Haji, injured. Johnny, injured. Caleb Wiley, injured. There's like 7 of them that are still injured. So he probably would not sneak into this on another day, but he does make it now. Now, this was the assist. Little cut back. It's hard to tell, to be honest, if he touched it. I think he back heels it. He's the orange shirt in the middle here. He back heels it. Oh, yeah, Weston is also injured, BMR. And then, bam, right? He scores. So a bit of an assist. He did get off the bench again on the weekend, played just a couple of minutes. Let's see how he does going forward. Can he force his way back into this Celta Vigo team? As far as Ivan Henriquez here, who says Luka should come back to MLS and join the new expansion team to give it some credibility. Luka said that MLS is like playing a different sport, and I agree with him. Maybe in his 30s, he will be ready to go play a different sport, but I don't think he is ready to start playing a different sport right now. Even if he can't cut it at Celta Vigo, there are lots of places where he can. The Eredivisie, for example. He could go there and have a great career in the Eredivisie, no problem whatsoever. The Belgian league as well, for sure. But we'll see how he does. What does he look like over the next 6 months? Remember, Luuk de Jong got 9 goal contributions under Rafa Benitez last season, right? So it's not like he can't play in La Liga. The injury has stymied his progress. And look, he's probably not going to be in that 2026 World Cup just because of all the depth we have in midfield and the depth that continues to come. So I don't think he's going to be there, but he shouldn't come back to MLS yet, right? What do you think? Should we address this now? What do you think of Donovan saying Gio should go to MLS? Well, God bless Landon Donovan. He was a great player, one of the greatest American players of all time. I love that I said that like Donald Trump. A great player, one of the best American players, even better than me. Not by much, but yes, better. Certainly a guy that did great things, did a fantastic job. Loved Landon. No, but he was a great player in MLS. But then, obviously, since he's retired, he has made he's become a full-on shill. And I think that Donovan, not that he regrets it, but he could never cut it in Europe, right? And not because he didn't have the ability, but he chose the easy path. He chose to stay at home and, stay in MLS and play the easy game. And, and now he wants all of our guys to do that too. Pulisic, right? You should come back to MLS instead of staying at Milan, which is absolutely absurd because Pulisic is far times the player that, far better than Landon Donovan ever was and will continue to be so. Landon is now saying this about Gio. So maybe if Gio starts to come back or starts to make a comeback, maybe it'll be like the Landon curse, where the minute Landon says you should come back to MLS, your career takes off even more, because that's what happened with Pulisic. So maybe Landon is just playing reverse psychology. Whatever American player is struggling for one reason or another, we get Landon on a mic and we go, Landon, say your thing. And Landon goes, I think that we should bring, Gio Reyna should come back to MLS because I love MLS and it's a great league and I love shilling for it. And I just think that Gio, here's the thing about his comments that really pissed me off. He acted like Giovanni Reyna wasn't able to play for Dortmund. What stymied Reyna's Dortmund career was multiple injuries. He was playing and performing very well for Dortmund before all these injuries. So this idea that he had to be in MLS and he would have 300 games if he played from MLS. Yeah, let's talk about that, Landon, since you apparently didn't think this through. All right. Maybe all the hair plug surgeries did something to your brain, but you are actually probably more likely to get injured in MLS for two reasons: multiple artificial fields, as well as significantly more travel time. All right. Significantly more travel time. So the idea that somehow he would be less injury prone in MLS is ridiculous. Now, Landon didn't say that, right? But artificial turf is definitely contributing to more injuries, and the multiple travel times would not be good for him. Look, I think Donovan is full of it, right? And I think he will continue to say absolute nonsense. If Gio needs to drop a level in pursuit of playing time, maybe in January, or a permanent move in the summer, I can get on board with that. I think a mid-table Bundesliga club could use him. I think at the very worst, he could play for PSV Eindhoven, and that should be the lowest level that he should drop. This idea that he needs to come back to MLS is absolute nonsense. And it just continues to show Landon Donovan's insecurity as a player and as a pundit. And I mean, from, admitting to cheering against the US when he wasn't in the World Cup roster, to, supporting Mexico for money, taking money from a bank that was actually discriminating against Hispanic home buyers to support Mexico, and then calling Carlos Bocanegra racist for calling him out on supporting our biggest rival, to all the nonsense, questioning whether or not the dual Nats care enough about the national team, which is like, dude, you can maybe call out a player or two and say, I don't know if this person really cares. But once you start grouping dual Nats into this monolith and saying they don't care as much as Americans, it's like, come on, you can't say that. That's ridiculous and not true. Antonee Robinson is a dual national and has been one of our best players for the last 5 years, for example, right? Voldemir Balogun is clearly very committed. Ricardo Pepi is a dual national and obviously very committed to. I mean, there are so many dual Nats on this team. So Landon, and then now the stuff about Pulisic coming to MLS, and now Gio should come to MLS so they can be like me and have mediocre club careers, which is what Landon had. Terrible club career. Playing in MLS. MLS was even worse back then than it is now, right? Of course, he did a lot for the country. But as we are finding with, Casey Keller and Tim Howard and many other pundits, being a great player for the U.S. does not mean that we should take your opinion seriously once you retire, because you become a little shill, all right, for access, and you say your little takes, and you guys know this. We've been dealing with this for the last 5 years, right? The same people who were like cheering for Berhalter and getting mad at people for criticizing him went very quiet when Berhalter got fired, and we're like, oh gosh, all the people that I was criticizing were right. All right. Anywho, let's move on to Paxton Aaronson. Paxton Aaronson did not get a goal or an assist this week. He did, however, have a very good game against Almere City. Played 90 minutes, created 2 chances, 3 out of 3 successful dribbles, 2 out of 2 accurate long balls, won 3 out of 4 tackles. And by the way, he's not playing as a 10 for Utrecht. He's playing as an 8, more in a double pivot. 3 out of 4 tackles won, which was a match high. 7 out of 10 ground duels won, which was also a match high. Did commit 3 fouls. His rise this season, his, improvement playing for Utrecht has been very palpable. And it's been very clear to see what being there has done for him as a player, because maybe he wasn't quite ready for Frankfurt. And Utrecht are second in the league and, pushing for that second Champions League spot, right? So that could be very, very interesting if he helps them to get into the Champions League. Of course, he may go back to Frankfurt, right? He may go back to Frankfurt. So we'll have to wait and see. But the important thing is that this loan has been really, really good for him. Giovanni Reyna makes it into the top 10 for really, I'll be honest. Look, he had an interesting 12 minutes and should have had an assist. Probably would not have made it on a week where we had more options. But because we didn't have a ton of options, Giovanni Reyna makes it. But I will say this. That 12 minutes from Giovanni Reyna was probably the best 12 minutes I've seen from him since his injury. And Gio I called him out actually on Twitter in the last couple of weeks because I said the minutes that he was getting off the bench, I think he was way too passive on both sides of the ball, defensively and also on the ball. He was playing it safe with the passing. He was circulating the ball too slow. He wasn't driving at people the way we know he can. And I said, look, you're not going to get more minutes for Dortmund if you could put up those kind of performances. Now, the 12 minutes that he had against Gladbach today or yesterday were excellent, right? 1 chance created, 1 out of 1 successful dribbles, 2 out of 2 ground duels, and 2 recoveries. If Guirassy heads this on target, and that's a goal, we're having a completely different conversation. This started off as a Gio corner. It was a good Gio corner. It bounced around the box. They cleared it. It came right back to him, and he one-touched it right onto the head of Guirassy, who inexplicably headed it wide. So that's unfortunate because it would have been nice to have, an assist for both for his confidence and also to shut up, all the Gio haters. But ultimately, if he keeps putting in performances like that, he will get more time, right? Now, unfortunately, the timing's not great because Marco Reus is coming back from injury. But this is on Gio, right? Like, that is the level you need to perform at every time you step on the field for Dortmund if you ever want to be a starter. And if you're not going to do that, then you really have nobody to blame but yourself. But it was a great 12 minutes. That's the Gio it felt like that's the old Gio. That's what we need to see week in, week out. That's what, Nuri Sahin needs to see in training day in and day out. I'm sorry, not Marco Reus. What's his name? I always get those two mixed up. Not Marco Reus. Marco Reus plays for the Galaxy. What is his name? Somebody tell me his name. Brandt. Thank you. Julian Brandt. I always mix up Julian Brandt and Marco Reus. Probably because they were both 10s for Germany. Yes, Brandt is back in this Champions League game, but we'll see I don't know if he starts. I doubt Gio's going to start. I think Gio will have to start putting in like a really good 30 minutes before he gets a start. All right, so that's Gio. And number 7 was Brandon Vazquez of Monterrey. Played 8 minutes, scored 1 goal, and a very nice goal it was. This wasn't in Liga MX. This was in the semifinal of their cup, right? I don't remember what the cup is called over in Mexico, but it was a really nice goal. And his first goal in 3 months, right, for Brandon Vazquez. Look, he's 26 years old. He has really only ever had 1 great season in his life. And that great season happened at FC Cincinnati 2.5 years ago. His last year at FC Cincinnati was not good. And he has struggled here at Monterrey, struggled to even get minutes on the field in Liga MX, right? Which should tell you everything about this guy's level. He is not a USMNT level player. He looks like he's going to be going back to San Jose, and he's been getting a lot of criticism from the Monterrey faithful for his lack of production and his poor performances. And then when he scores a nice goal on a game that was 4-1, the game was over in the final minutes, Superman thing like plugs his ears. It's like, dude, you don't get to do that if you are being rightfully criticized. He's like rightfully criticized for not being a very good player. And then when he scores 1 goal on a game that's dead in the water, I mean, yes, it was a nice goal, but have some humility to be like, is like, dude, no, you had every right to be criticized by the Monterrey fans and also USMNT fans. His last 2 performances for the US, I think he missed 3 chances in like 40 minutes, like 3 one-on-one chances with the goalkeeper. So I don't know what that was all about, but this was a nice goal. I think he will be there in San Jose. If he moves there, I think that's a good move for San Jose. I think MLS is Brandon Vazquez's level. Hopefully he can get more than 13 or 14 goals per season, which is what he got last time at Cincinnati. He had 1 good year where I think he got 23 goal contributions or something like that, 23 to 25. And then the subsequent, and that was his first ever good season at age like 24. And then he had like, I think 12 or 13 goals his last year at Cincinnati. And then he went to Monterrey and it's been a bust. And he's just not a USMNT level player, but he can probably end up going back to San Jose, going back to MLS and bagging some goals and having a good little career. So good for Brandon. Talk about a feel-good story. Richie Ledezma has been through the ringer with his multiple injuries, 2 ACLs. He was once a young, promising player, right? And he's not really a young player anymore. He's 24 now. But in the absence of Serginho Dest, he's been deputizing at right back for them. And, he's looked generally okay, particularly against Eredivisie teams where they have a lot of the ball and he's allowed to surge forward and get involved in the game. He's going to be benched when Serginho Dest comes back, and I don't think he has a long-term career with PSV Eindhoven, but he did score a nice goal against FC Twente, and it was such a good thing to see for him, to have the mentality to fight back from those amount of injuries when you're a young player and to have so many setbacks and to come back stronger. It was really nice to see Richie get that goal, and he deserved it for everything that this poor kid has been through. He even came back to New York City FC and struggled to have an impact there. So it's just been a lot of ups and downs, mostly downs for Richie Ledezma. And look, again, I don't think this guy is a USMNT future in any way, shape, or form, but this was a nice goal, and I want to acknowledge it. He also created 3 chances, had 4 out of 4 accurate long balls, and 3 out of 3 ground duels. This ball was switched over to him on the right. Tough angle, gets it nicely into the far post. Kudos to him. I think he dedicated the goal to his grandfather as well. He's a really nice kid, and one of those kids that you want to root for. I don't know if you guys remember that 6-1 drubbing of Panama in November of 2020. He came on as a substitute and got 2 assists to another player who has disappeared, Sebastian Soto. Both were crosses from the right that Sebastian Soto headed home. But yeah, overall, it's a great story for Richie Ledezma, and he gets his first goal contribution in the Eredivisie. Malik Tillman also played against FC Twente, scored 90 minutes. Played 90 minutes, scored 1 goal, created 1 chance, 2 out of 2 accurate long balls, 2 out of 5 ground duels won, 2 out of 3 aerial duels won, and committed 2 fouls. He's now at 13 goal contributions on the season, chasing his 23 goal contributions from last year. Looks like he might be able to beat that. I'd say somewhere in the 25 to 30 range. And if he does, it'll be time for him to move on and push himself. It's a tricky situation with Malik Tillman. This was the goal. It's sort of, ping-ponged around the box, and then he was on hand to slide it home. It's not a tricky situation. Bayern Munich PSV can buy him, but Bayern Munich has a buyback clause, which they may activate if they feel he could be a player for them long term, or they could sell him for more than they pay. But he's not ready to play for Bayern Munich, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong about that. I think he'd be better off next year going to a mid-table German club, and we see how he does at a top 5 league level. Because look, as great as it is to be playing in the Eredivisie, the level of the Eredivisie used to be such that they would create players that were ready for the big time. That is less and less true now. Remember Gravenberch, who was amazing for Ajax and then went to Bayern Munich, wasn't quite ready for the big time, right? Same with even Xavi Simons, right? Was playing really, really well at PSV, wasn't quite ready for the big time. Now he is, right? Obviously, but there's a sort of an interim level to go from a good Eredivisie team to a Champions League team in a top 5 league, right? So I just think if Bayern wants to buy him back, then they could loan him to maybe, I don't know, a Stuttgart or a Gladbach, or even in the French league somewhere, potentially, a Lyon or a Marseille or a Monaco. Gravenberch starts for Liverpool. Yes, he does BMR. But when he moved from Ajax to Bayern Munich, what happened? He spent 2 years not really being ready for that level, right? So, and there are exceptions, like Ping saying Cody Gakpo. Yes, Cody Gakpo was pretty good for Liverpool. He was the exception. Remember when they used to churn out Arjen Robbins and Wesley Sneijder's and Robin van Persie's and Ruud van Nistelrooy's, right? The Eredivisie doesn't churn out, and there are lots of guys like Wout Weghorst, for example, who go to a big club from a big Dutch club, and it's a big gap. And so I don't think, Ziyech, for example. Ziyech is a guy. Of course, that was Chelsea, so that's a whole different, bowl of wax. But I do think there is a bigger gap than there used to be in the past, where being really good in the Eredivisie, I mean, heck, look at Josie Altidore. I realize that was a while ago, but 27, 28 Eredivisie goals, or at least goals for Alkmaar, and then, couldn't even cut it at Sunderland, right? So I'm not saying he can't ever play for the big time. I just think there needs to be an interim place for Malik Tillman before he's ready to play for a Bayern or even a Tottenham. I actually don't think he suits the Premier League at all. I think they will be very frustrated with him in the Premier League because the Premier League speed of play is very intense. Every weakness you have will be exposed at a very, high intensity, high speed game. I think Germany probably suits him better. And I think an interim move to a mid-table German club could, and then we see how he looks in the Bundesliga, and then maybe he can play for Bayern in a year or two. But anyways, kudos to Malik Tillman, made the top 5. Joseph Scally, sometimes maligned, sometimes praised, and sometimes fairly maligned for being quite limited, played really, really well against Dortmund. Played 90 minutes, 1 chance created, 2 blocks, 6 clearances, 3 interceptions, 5 recoveries, only won 3 out of 10 ground duels, and 0 out of 2 aerial duels. But really, the stats don't tell the tale with Joe Scally. He had a really good game. I know that Jamie Bino Gittins scored, but Scally generally kept him quiet. And on the goal, it was actually not his fault. He had a really, really good game. So it was good to see him, particularly defensively. Tyler Adams of Bournemouth played 90 minutes, 2 chances created, 1 big chance missed, 5 out of 7 tackles won, 1 block, 9 out of 17 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 aerial duels won, and 5 fouls committed for Tyler Adams. He had a really good game against Tottenham. He did not play today because they rested him, which was probably the right thing to do. But Iraola said something about Tyler. He said, in the past, Tyler Adams, and obviously he's talking about before, all the injuries that sort of, slowed him down. In the past, Tyler Adams would be a bit too overeager, right? And he would want to go into every challenge, into every tackle, go all over the field and harass people. And we didn't say this, but what he's talking about is positional discipline. They're trying to get Tyler Adams to be a little bit more positionally disciplined, which is fair. It's something that you need if you're going to play in the Premier League. Understanding how your position relates to the rest of the team, right? And canteen noise. Is the mic causing problems? Yeah, look, Tyler Adams is definitely, it's good to see him playing 90 minutes in the Premier League and being healthy and generally playing quite well, and also continuing to improve as a player. And even Tyler himself came out and said at 25, yeah, he might be 25, but he can still improve. And so that mentality is good to see from Tyler Adams. And I hope he will continue to stay healthy, first of all, but also continue to improve as a player. And, he's going to be, 27 during that World Cup because he turns 26 in February. He's not injured, Vespigo, but they said he was very tired after playing 90 minutes, two games in a row in the same week. And so they just decided to rest him, which is probably smart management for Tyler. So not injured, though, according to Iraola. But yeah, look, he's going to be 27, which is sort of your prime as a player, right, in that World Cup. And, with Johnny injured again, and despite Johnny generally looking very good for Betis, he hasn't showed that Betis form in a USMNT jersey yet, right? And so if he does not, then Tyler is that de facto starter at the 6. So it's good to see Tyler playing so well. It's good to see him healthy. Long may it continue, because him and A-Rob are the only guys playing regularly in the Premier League right now, right? Chris Richards, ever since he came back from his injury, hasn't cracked his way into the starting lineup yet. And, Matt Turner, perennial bench warmer. Pulisic is not out for the season, Daniel. Pulisic had a cramp that they said was nothing serious. I think he will miss the Champions League today or tomorrow. Yeah, he'll miss the Champions League game in midweek, but it looks like he'll be fine after that. Ricardo Pepi started against FC Twente. He's been starting a lot of games recently, even with Luuk de Jong fully fit. And he did get a goal and an assist versus FC Twente, which begs the question, is Ricardo Pepi now the starter at PSV Eindhoven? And let me say a couple of things. The last time that Luuk de Jong scored a goal or got any goal contribution of any kind was, I believe, a month ago, November 4th or 5th against Ajax. In that time, Ricardo Pepi has 7 goal contributions. In that time, he's got 7 goal contributions. I think that they were probably resting De Jong because of their last Champions League game in midweek. But if they do not rest De Jong and they start Pepi in that game, then Pepi will have officially usurped Luuk de Jong as the number 1 starter at PSV Eindhoven. And to usurp the captain is no small feat, and deservedly so. Look, it wasn't the perfect game. November 2nd, says Ping. That was his Ajax game. Thank you. So more than a month. It wasn't his best game, certainly, in terms of performance. He looked good. The goal in particular was a very nice goal. It was a chip over the goalkeeper, but it was also, he received it with his back to goal with a defender on him and was able to turn him, dribble into space, and then chip the keeper. But he also missed some chances that he should be finishing. And this has been true of, the last 3 or 4 games. There were chances that you think, wow, he's got to finish that. But they're creating enough chances for him that it doesn't matter. He'll finish some of them. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but there are rumors that he's going to leave and go somewhere to a big club or a big league. You're not going to be able to get away with missing easy chances in a big league, right? You're going to get 2 chances and you're going to have to score at least one of them, right? And if even the other one, you might get dragged for missing if the team draws or loses. He is not even 22 years old yet. He is 21. He turns 22 in January. I think his, role, and I think what's best for his continued development will be to wrest the starting position from Luuk de Jong this season, which I think he is on the verge of doing. If not now, if not this week, possibly in the spring, in the early spring, which I think he can do. I think De Jong is on a big decline and he is clearly performing and he's very driven and very motivated to get that spot. Then I think he should stay at PSV one more season, one full season as the starter, and potentially move after the 2026 World Cup, right? Because if he scores, if he gets 30 goal contributions for PSV Eindhoven in the next season, and then has a great World Cup for the US, people will pay 50 million for this kid. They will pay at least 50 million for this kid. Think about it. Obviously, the talent and the ability is there, right? If he continues to progress and grow, if he performs in the World Cup, that will show that he can perform at a high level under pressure, and obviously the reps that he's gotten at PSV Eindhoven. But on top of it, he's not only American, he's Mexican-American. What does that mean? That means that not only Americans will be watching him, even Mexicans will be watching him. Because believe it or not, there are many Mexican fans that, while they might not be USMNT fans, will still be able to relate to Ricardo Pepi. And particularly Mexican fans in the US who are Mexican-American can identify with him as another, Mexican-American or an American of Mexican heritage. So I think, I know El Tri fans like to make the El marketing joke. People don't just sign players for marketing. I mean, MLS does. That's a different thing. Clubs, you'd have to be useful to them, but it is an additional benefit, right? To be like, well, not only is he a good player, but we'll potentially get more eyeballs on us, from the US and Mexico. So this was the assist. It was nothing amazing. It was Saibari who finished it quite nicely, but whatever, good little layoff to Saibari there. And the goal, which again, I can't really recreate with this drawing, but I will be able, it'll be on Patreon this afternoon, right? He receives the ball with his back to goal, right? With a defender on his back. And too often in the past, and this is where I think, he really has made strides of progress. Too often in the past, any pressure from behind, and he would sort of have to scoot forward to receive the ball and then end up being further from goal. Not only does he take the ball down, he turns away from pressure, beats the defender on the dribble, and then chips the keeper quite nicely. So it was a really, really nice goal from Ricardo Pepi. And watch that midweek Champions League game, because if he is starting in it, then it is official. He has usurped Luuk de Jong as the club's number 9. If he doesn't start in it, it's not quite yet, but I really think it's a matter of if, not when, or when, not if. It's a matter of when, not if, and I think it will be sooner rather than later, because De Jong is not looking good and Pepi is going from strength to strength. Antonee Jedi Robinson has very rarely made the top 10 in the number one spot. He's made the top 10 before, rarely in the number one spot, but he had two really good games this week. One against Tottenham, where they drew 1-1, and then one against Arsenal, where they also drew 1-1. He locked down Saka for most of the Arsenal game. He got an assist against Tottenham. Was it, a great assist? No, Iwobi did most of the work, as you will see. But he also created 2 chances, had 4 out of 4 successful dribbles, 3 out of 4 accurate long balls, 6 out of 7 ground duels won, 1 foul drawn. And there are rumors that Liverpool is interested in him to replace Andy Robertson. This was the assist. He basically dribbled down the left, cut it back, and sort of laid it off to Iwobi. And Iwobi had a really nice dribble into the box and curled it into the far post. But he had a very good game, and he had another defensively. He had a very good game, and then he had another very good game as well against Arsenal, which puts him as number 1. Now, and he's been captaining the team. Yes, he captained the team for the last 3 games. Let's talk about the Liverpool rumors. I think that he doesn't need to leave Fulham. I think Fulham is his level in many ways, but I could be wrong. And what Antonee Robinson has consistently proven is that if a club knows how to use you well, and if your commitment to defending, particularly in 1v1 situations, continues to be excellent, you can play what I would say is above your level. And I know that sounds a little condescending because I don't want to make it sound like he's not able to play for Liverpool, but when you think of, very good technical left backs that can be heavily involved in the build out, that can get out of pressure on their own, that's not Antonee Jedi Robinson. And while he's progressed in that area of his game, I still don't think he's the greatest on the ball, right? However, if Liverpool wants to try to use him, I think he can adapt. I don't think he needs to. I think where he's at right now, Fulham, which is a mid-table Premier League club, is perfectly fine, right, for him. Would it be cool to have a starting left back at Liverpool? Yes. Yes, of course. Would it be cool to have an American win the Premier League this season? Because Liverpool has a good chance to do that, in my opinion, especially if you see what's happening right now with, Man City and, the self-harm on Pep. I think Pep Guardiola is losing it a little bit. I think he needs another break, to be honest. But, and yeah, would it be cool to have A-Rob playing in the Champions League because Liverpool are absolutely going to be, out of the group? Sure. My only concern is the level too high for him? Does he go there? Does Liverpool not use him the same way that Fulham used him, which really was as an outlet in attack instead of, a big piece of the puzzle when building out of the back? I mean, it's hard to say. If Liverpool can use him the same way that Fulham use him, then I think he can adapt and I think he can play there. But if they try to turn him into a Trent Alexander-Arnold, I just don't think he's ever going to be that. And so I'm skeptical of the move to Liverpool, especially when he is in such a good situation, captaining the club, playing consistently. Minutes can evaporate at Liverpool if you don't play well. And then before you know it, you're being benched. So I'm skeptical of the move, but also I understand that if Liverpool comes calling, you probably have to go yes, right? You have to take that opportunity. So we'll see. Antonee Robinson has proven a lot of people wrong over the course of his career, including me. So can he do it one more time? Can he do it one more time? Daniel goes, Landon is out there somewhere preparing a speech to convince us all that Jedi should come to MLS. This would be Landon on his podcast. A lot of people are talking about, Antonee, what's his name? Robinson? Yeah, he's like another dual national. And he's a guy that, I think he's got some options that are similar, right? One is to go to Liverpool. And then on a similar level, or maybe even slightly above that, maybe a big MLS team like San Jose Earthquakes could use a good left back. And I'll tell you what, man, people like to bash this league, but I like it. And I think that, Jedi should push himself. He could come to MLS and play 300 games. Tim Howard's like, yeah, well, he's got like more than 300 games in the Premier League at this point. Well, no, I know, but like, are 300 games in the Premier League as cool as saying 300 games in MLS? Like, I think that's important to think about. And also for the growth of the league And maybe San Diego, San Diego FC is a nice city. I love San Diego, man. Like they've got beaches and the sun is shining. And really that's what you want as a like world-class athlete. You want to be near a beach, and have access to like SoCal restaurants, which are cool. And like, I don't think you can surf in Fulham. Fulham's in London. Is that in London? I hadn't spent almost no time in Europe, so I don't actually know where it is, but I don't think you can surf so much, and surfing's cool. So like Jedi should consider surfing when he makes decisions about like Liverpool, San Diego. Like, the levels are similar. Does it then come down to lifestyle? No, you guys know what I'm trying to say. Obviously, Landon's not going to say that, but yeah. Point taken, Daniel. Do you think Cole Campbell should be loaned in January? It's a good question, Julian. That's a good question. He, broke in at Dortmund. He still was, looks like he could hang at Dortmund, but there's a lot of guys ahead of him and he still looks very raw. And now he's playing with Dortmund 2, not with the U19s. He's playing with Dortmund 2 in the German 3rd division. Actually had an assist this weekend. So, that might be it, right? Like that might be the next step. Like he's not quite ready for Dortmund. Could he go out on loan to even a 2nd division team, right? Like maybe a Greuther Fürth or, a team that needs a quick spitty. Some of these smaller teams in the Bundesliga also play more in transition. So maybe he would suit them. I don't know, but maybe I think you've hit on something. A move for Cole Campbell in January, 6 months in the Bundesliga, and then come back to Dortmund next year and compete, because Malen is probably leaving. Malen could even leave in January, and Adeyemi could leave also in the summer. We'll see if Malen and Adeyemi leave. Not only, I'm going to say this right now, if both Malen and Adeyemi, and by the way, Bino Gittins could be getting a big Premier League move too. So we're talking about at least 2 out of those 3 guys, I'm guessing, are leaving either in January or the summer. If one of them leaves in the summer, I think Cole Campbell in the winter, I think Cole Campbell should stay because there's a chance for more minutes. But I think you're right. If he goes and spends 6 months in the Bundesliga and then comes back, not just him, Mathis Albert. Mathis Albert spent 2 months with their U17s at age 15, and they decided he was too good for their U17s at 15 years old. So he's been playing with the under-19s. He's not only playing with the under-19s, he's absolutely balling for the under-19s. I said this last week in a video about our prospects. He is on a very similar trajectory to Pulisic and Reina in terms of where they were at. Actually, I am not saying he's going to be better than those players. I'm just saying at his age, Pulisic and Reina went to Dortmund at age 16. They broke through and got their debuts for Dortmund at age 17, both of them. Late 17, approaching 18. Mathis Albert is already balling out for the under-19s at 15 years old. There is a greater than 0% chance he could make his debut at the end of this season. I don't think it will be that, but I think there is a small chance it could be at the end of this season. I am, provided he doesn't get an injury, I am quite certain, or at least I am quite confident, that he will make his debut for Dortmund's senior team next season at age 16 years old. So it's not just Cole Campbell. There is also Mathis Albert waiting in the wings. Now, of course, he's very, very young. He is 15 years old. I don't want to overhype the kid, but I have watched a lot of him play. I've watched streams of his youth games. I've watched highlights of what he can do. And I believe, and you guys know, I don't necessarily believe in overhyping 15, 16-year-olds. I believe this kid has very, very, very bright future. I'm cautiously optimistic because you just never know how good a player is going to be and the different factors that go into development. But there's certainly a high talent level with this kid, and I hope he can continue to develop. But yes, Cole Campbell and Mathis Albert are the 2 young wingers to watch. There is also Jack Mize, who had a very good year last year and then got injured and is just now coming back from injury. But great question, Julian. And I think you actually got me thinking about that and what Cole Campbell should do. Dest is honestly the last Eredivisie player that got significant time playing for an elite team in the first season after leaving the Eredivisie. Yeah, and even then, it didn't really work out at Barcelona. And then again, it didn't really work out at Milan. And so, some of that is obviously on Dest himself. But yeah, exactly, right? Gravenberch had the same problem. He went straight to Bayern and it didn't, right? He spent 2 years sitting on the bench for them. So yeah, I just think while Cody Gakpo has done pretty well for Liverpool, and Xavi Simons is now doing quite well, I think it is not a guarantee. Let me put it this way. It is not a guarantee that if you are balling out for an Eredivisie team, you can ball out for a Champions League team in a top 5 league. Let me put it that way. And so I think, especially for a guy like Malik, I think he takes advantage of the fact that naturally PSV Eindhoven have a huge advantage over all of their counterparts in the Eredivisie. And there's not a lot of threat when you lose the ball. But to be fair, he's also added more aggression in the Champions League as well. So it's like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Malik can go straight to a Champions League team. I would err on the side of caution, where instead of going to Tottenham's not even a Champions League team, but like a Tottenham or a Bayern Munich or a Manchester United or a Chelsea, can you go somewhere interim first, right? Let's see. Jeff says, Pete, do you think the U.S. team should shave their legs, etc.? Oh, God, Jeff. I think every player can do whatever they want. Julian Vivas with another good one. Do you think Scally can go to the Premier League next season like a Fulham? Okay. I don't think so. The pace of the game in the Premier League is significantly higher than it is in the Bundesliga. And at times, even Scally does still struggle at times in the Bundesliga. So I'm not saying he can never play in the Premier League. I would be wary of him going to the Premier League. I just think that, if anything, maybe go to a German team that is higher up the table. But I don't even think most high-level teams want attacking fullbacks. Joe Scally isn't really that. He's more of a stay-at-home defensive fullback. I think that's more his level. He isn't the most technical player in tight spaces. I think that he can still get caught out. He can still get beat for pace at times. And yeah, he's young, right? He just, I think, is turning 22 at the end of this month, on the 31st, actually. So he is still young. I think maybe after 2026 for, Joe Scally. I think stay at Gladbach another year and a half, play well at the World Cup. If you play, we'll see what happens to Dest. He might play some minutes. And then maybe at the age of 23, maybe get a move higher up. But he's still very, very young. And I think continuing to be, a reliable right back that can continue to grow as a player. And a lot of the growing for him is going to be reading the game and understanding positioning, because he isn't the quickest player. He can still get caught out at times. He isn't the most technical player on the ball. So I think for Scally, who reminds me a lot of a young Steve Cherundolo, a lot of the progress that he can make as a player, because of his limited technical ceiling, I think a lot of his progress is going to be about reading the game and understanding positioning. And I think that's where we're going to see the most progress for Scally in the next couple of years. Dest back soon, says Ian. Yeah, supposed to be back in January. All right. So hopefully that'll be fun to have him back. Pete, Tillman still on your fraud watch until he starts performing for the national team the way that he does for PSV Eindhoven. Yes. Because the fraud watch was never about his club performances. The fraud watch was about, how come you can do that for PSV Eindhoven, but whenever you play for the US, you stink up the joint? And some people will say, well, he hasn't played that. He's played over 600 minutes now for the USMNT, okay? For a reference point, when Gio had 600 minutes for the USMNT, he had already 5 goal contributions under his belt and looked very good, right? Tillman has almost never looked good for the national team, barring one game against Canada, where I actually thought he looked good in September. That Canada game was the only game where I was really impressed by Malik Tillman. I'm not saying he can't be in the future. I hope he does. With Gio's injury, history, and an uncertain future, we need a good 10. And Brendan Aronson is certainly not it, right? So I want Tillman to be good. I don't want to have to go, oh man, Gio's injured. That means we're going to get Brendan Aronson to the 10. I want to be able to go, well, sucks, but at least we have quality backup in Malik Tillman. So until he performs like that for the national team, yes. But hopefully, and look, March and June, those are his opportunities to show what he can do. If we go through Nations League, Gold Cup, and he's still stinking up the joint, people are going to naturally question, what's he doing on the national team? What's he doing on the national team? Is like, at the end of the day, we love guys balling out in Europe at high levels. It's fantastic. It's great. At the end of the day, if you're not doing it for the Stars and Stripes, none of that matters, right? At least from a USMNT perspective, it doesn't matter what you do for your club if you can't replicate it for your country. And maybe it's harsh, but I'm sorry. I think there needs to be more pressure on Malik Tillman when it comes to playing for the U.S. And not just him, right? Sargent's in the same boat. Johnny is in the same boat. Chris Richards, to some degree, is in the same boat. Although Richards has had good games. He's just been a bit more inconsistent for the U.S. But yeah, for me, Johnny, Sargent, Tillman, those are the three that you go, look, at the end of the day, all this, great performances at high levels are wonderful, and it will continue to earn you looks up to a point, but you got to do it for the U.S. Jeff Carey, Pete, do the Trump YMCA dance, please. No, thank you. I don't want Tim Howard to write an article about me for doing a dance. All right, guys, have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Patreon video is going to be out this evening instead of tomorrow because I've got some extra time this afternoon. So have a great rest of your Sunday. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Smash subscribe if you haven't done that already. And it's an exciting time to be a USMNT fan. The next year and a half and beyond are going to be very exciting, not just because of the player pool we have now, but the player pool we have coming up. I lost what I was going to say. Have a great one, guys.